Bob Costa, Hallie Jackson raised the specter of more tweets. That may be a question I need to ask you and your colleagues at the Washington Post, because it seems as though the last round of tweets may have been sparked by a story that you all wrote about the president's thinking and state of mind. You write, quote, as one advisor described the president's thinking, he does not believe his son purposefully broke the law, but is fearful nonetheless that Trump Jr. inadvertently may have wandered into legal jeopardy. Is this, something that continuing to drive the president's thinking as we head into this vacation?
He's currently waging a public fight against the Mueller investigation with regard to its credibility. He's trying to explain himself, explain his family's conduct over the past couple of years during all of these different moments. What matters, though, and we're on the precipice of this major decision for this administration, for this president, will he sit down and talk with Robert Mueller and his investigators about all of these things rather than just tweeting about them? And that choice will determine where this administration goes with regard to the investigation, whether they have to engage in a subpoena fight that could last for months, or whether they just sit down and answer a narrow set of questions.
Right. Interesting. It does seem to be something where this president has been, as you point out, pushing very hard for this, but potentially risks more and more legal jeopardy. You also write in this report that, quote, the president more than ever is channeling his internal frustration and fear into a ravenous maw of grievance and invective. He is churning out false statements with greater frequency and attacking his perceived enemies with intensifying fury. I mean, you and I obviously both cover this administration in Capitol Hill every day, and sometimes in the churn of the news cycle, it can be difficult to kind of pull out and see the big picture. But I mean, as you've covered this president over the course of the last year, does it seem like there's a material change in kind of his overall mood, approach, his level of intensity and fury that's related to this investigation, or are we simply seeing kind of the ride we've all been on that is the Trump presidency continue as it always has been?
You're right, Casey, in that we've seen this rage, this unhappiness before about the Mueller investigation. The president has long called it a cloud. What we're detecting in our reporting is an escalation because of the timing. We're months ahead of the midterm elections. We're weeks, if not days, ahead of a decision on a interview with Robert Mueller. The investigation continues. A report is on the horizon about the president's possible conduct and maybe even obstruction of justice and how he's handled different situations over the past year. And you have grievance about the media, grievance about his political enemies. It's all becoming a political storm that is leading the president to hit 3 rallies in the last week, pledging to campaign 6 to 7 days a week ahead of the midterm elections.
Robert Costa in Washington, Hallie Jackson with the president in New Jersey. Thank you both so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And despite the shifting storyline, President Trump's legal team maintains that the Trump Tower meeting was, quote, totally legal.
Well, the question is, how would it be illegal? I mean, the real question here is, would a meeting of that nature constitute a violation, the meeting itself constitute a violation of the law? The question is, what law, statute, or rule or regulation has been violated? Nobody's pointed to one.
Back with me now is former federal prosecutor Seth Waxman. Seth, can you answer that question? I mean, what are the laws around this?
Sure, there are several. I mean, we've talked about a little bit this idea of foreign campaign contributions, where if a foreign national gives anything of value to someone, a campaign, that can be a crime. And on the other side, if the person accepts or even solicits that kind of contribution, that can be a crime. So Don Jr., when he says he loves it with regards to the dirt on Hillary, that alone can be a crime, full stop. There are other crimes, bribery, which is a quid pro quo. If that anything of value is given in exchange for a promise of future government action, like reducing sanctions, that can be bribery. And bribery can be the basis for several other charges, like honest services fraud, or the most powerful weapon federal prosecutors have, Rico. So there's a whole series of charges out there. And so when the lawyers and Mr. Trump say, we did this, or, but it's not illegal, that is just a huge mistake in my mind.
Translate Viewers, quickly.
Racketeering, influence, corrupt organizations. So that's what's used to go after the mob when there are very disparate crimes, like in the mob scenario. They're running a gambling operation in Nevada over here and prostitution in New Jersey. There wasn't really a law that would capture all of that, so the Congress enacted Rico. If the prosecution here were to use Rico, you have things going on in Russia over here, Cohen material going on over here. I mean, I'm speculating a bit, but
sure,
bribery is a predicate offense to Rico, and if you get into that framework, you're looking at 15, 20, and 30-year offenses, as opposed to campaign finance law, which is 1 or 2 or 5-year offenses. And those aren't really the kind of charges to flip senior members of conspiracy, especially if it's the son and son-in-law.
Right. So the lesson is, if the Russians call you campaign consultant with some dirt on your opponent, call the FBI.
Yes, hang up the phone. Call the FBI.
Former federal prosecutor Seth Waxman, thanks very much for your time today, sir. Really appreciate it.